Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey folks, today we're going to take a look at the first and only expansion for the game Kemet, and that is called the Ta-Seti expansion. Now, Kemet is a fantastic, I'll say light war game, for lack of a better term, that uses Eurogame elements. My review of that is actually going up at the same time that this expansion review is going up. I've loved the game for years, it's just finally got around to doing the review of it. And what the Ta-Seti expansion does is adds 5 different modular things to the game. You can pick and choose which ones you want to use them all, it's entirely up to you. And one of the modules is just simply a rules change that you can decide to use or not use. We'll cover all that in the final thoughts. The other modules, however, add some very drastic things to it, including a new type of pyramid, which opens up a new type of power tile for you to purchase, a bunch of new power tiles, just like with the other colors. You have a whole other sideboard that you can use where you can send priests on a journey. Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. And there's some other interesting elements, new cards as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at all the new stuff that comes in this expansion. Then we're going to come back and I'll break down how I feel about each of the individual parts. Okay, this is all the stuff that comes in the new Ta-Seti expansion for Kemet. The way this expansion works is that there's 5 different modules. You determine which ones you want to use. You can use them all independently. You can use them all together and throw everything into the mix. That is entirely up to you. So let me go ahead and break it down. Of course, we'll start with the biggest ones first, the most notable ones. And the first one we will talk about are the Black Pyramids. Now, just like in the base game of Kemet, you can use these as the pyramids in your city. You determine at the start of the game which of the now 4 pyramids that you want to use, and they follow the same rules for placement as the original pyramids, meaning you can start with 3 pyramids in your city all at level 1, you can start off with a pyramid at level 2 and a pyramid at level 1, and then do not put the third one out. Now, if that's the case, if you choose to go that route, then during the course of the game, you decide what your 4th pyramid is going to be. So let's say that you chose the Black Pyramid and the Blue Pyramid, and you have the white, like the Black Pyramid at level 2 and the Blue Pyramid at level 1, and you didn't put the third one out, then during the course of the game, if you choose to level up the other pyramid to level 1, you choose right then and there whether you want it to be the white or the red one in that particular example. Also, you have these little tiles that come with the expansion. These go onto your player board. So here, let me show you, actually. They're just going to slide right onto your player board. The way that you would do it, here, I guess I have to do it like this. The way that you would do it is actually covering up, ideally, you would cover up whatever pyramid you're choosing not to use during the game. Now, you can freely move them around if you choose, like for instance, if I choose the black and the blue pyramid, then later on I level up my red, I just move it over here. It's no big deal, it's just a way for you to keep track of your actions. Now, as I said, these pyramids follow all the other standard rules of the other pyramids, meaning that if you get a pyramid up to level 4, it counts as a temporary victory point for you so long as you maintain control of it. Also, of course, you have tiles. There are a bunch of new black tiles in the game that do very different things than the tiles from the other 3 colors. And of course, same rules. You have to, in order to be eligible to spend the prayer points to take a tile of a certain level, you have to have a pyramid, a black pyramid in your city of that level. So let's go ahead and break down what all of these do. First off, you have these 2 mercenary tiles up here in the top corner. You can, just like with any of the other tiles, you can only have one of the same tile. Even though each of the mercenary tiles gives you a different set of figures, you can still only have one, just like any of the other power tiles. And essentially what it does, there's some male mercenaries and some female mercenaries, depending on which one you take. They count as extra units. It only costs you 1 prayer point. You take those 3 units, and you put them into your district, and then they're just treated like units from that point forward. Then you have enforced recruitment, which is really cool because it says that you can recruit your troops when you take the recruit action anywhere that you have troops. So it doesn't just have to be in your city. It can be out in the field, out in the temple, as long as you have one of your troops there. Then you have one of the golden action tiles, the Divine Will. Now this is there's a few of these in this set. You have multiples of them, and the way that it works is that if you have multiple tiles that get you the golden action, then you can still only use one of them per your day phase, because you still only have one golden token, but you decide which of the tiles you want to use. Now this one here is going to give you an extra prey action. So when you put down one of your normal action markers, you can also put down the golden one at the top of your pyramid, at this spot here on your player board up here at the top, and that will get you an extra free prey action. So going down to level 2s, this one actually lets you take one of the tile spots on your tile actions that you've already taken on your board, although it does cost you an extra prayer point to take that tile that you use with that action. Then over here, you're going to gain, if you have this tile, you're going to gain one prayer point for every one of your units that you lose in battle. It's called Honor in Battle. Next to that, you have Dedication to Battle. Whenever you use the move and attack action, you gain 2 prayer points if you move into a space where there's an enemy troop. You get those even if the battle doesn't happen. Then we get into the monsters. We'll cover those. So the first one is the Kemet Sphinx. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that correctly. You get +1 movement and +1 strength, but more importantly, in order to move into a space that has the Kemet Sphinx, the monster figure here, that your opponent has to spend 2 prayer points just to do that, on top of whatever prayer points they may be spending, for instance, to teleport to you. Moving down to the 3s, you have the Griffin Sphinx, who says that you get +2 strength, and whenever you use move and attack, you can actually teleport from an obelisk, not just to an obelisk. Then you have the standard requisite victory point tile. You just take it, you get a permanent victory point. Deadly Trap, which says that when someone moves their troop into one of your troop spaces, they immediately have to kill one of their units. And then the last of the golden actions for the black tiles. This one gives you an extra move and attack action. And then finally, the level 4s, you have the silver token, which just gives you a whole other action you can take of your choice, but it has to be placed down along with one of your other actions. You have this one here, which is going to give you +1 to damage, +1 to strength, and +1 to your movement for all of your troops out on the board. Divine Strength says that anytime during the day phase you would gain a prayer point, you gain an additional prayer point. And then the last of the new monsters for this set, the Devourer, who is super cool. He gives you +1 to your movement and +2 to your strength, but more importantly, as with any of these, your Lynx troop is immune to any damage that happens not in battle. So after winning a battle after winning a battle in which you destroyed at least 2 opposing units, you gain an extra battle victory point. So if anyone tries to do any shenanigans to you, like, oh hey, I'm going to play this card, and you immediately lose 2 troops before the battle even starts, that does not happen. It cannot happen if you have the Devourer in that troop. And on top of that, if you kill 2 or more of his people in that combat, you get an extra battle victory point if you win, which is pretty darn cool. The other major centerpiece of this expansion is the Ta-Seti board. Now this is kind of this is more of the centerpiece of the expansion, I guess. This represents the journey of the priests of the players moving towards the city of Ta-Seti. So every character, every player in the game is going to have a set of 3 priests in their color. Notice that they have different bases as well, so you can immediately tell them apart from your standard units, which will become important as we'll find out. So what happens here? First off, these boards are double-sided. So if you flip them over, there's actually a different layout of areas and different layout of tokens as well. But every time that you take the move attack action, you can move one of your priests. You can either move a priest who is already on the board from one space, like a village or a city, from like here to here along the path, or you can take one that's still off the board, off to the side, and start it down the path in one of these spaces. Now, a few different things are going to be happening as you move down this board. And first off, I should note that this happens before you actually do any kind of movement on the main board. So you take the movement attack action, stop whatever you were planning on doing with your troops on the main board, and instead go over here and manipulate your priests, so to speak. So first off, you have these temporary tokens. When you first move down the path, and there's another one down the way here for attack as well, you immediately gain this temporary token. So if I move from here to here as a red player, I will take this token and put it in front of me. But I only have until the end of this action resolution to use that token. So once I use it or don't use it, it goes back on the board immediately. That one gives me +1 damage in combat. This one gives me +1 protection, and the one I showed you over here gives you +1 to your attack. Also, anytime there is something printed on the board along a path, like right here, you get, like for instance, as soon as you move your priest from here to here, in addition to that temporary token, you gain a prayer point. At other spots, you might gain a divine intervention card, just like right there. This one lets you recruit 2 troops right away. Up here, you actually get to kill one of your opponent's troops. So that's that. Now let's talk about these bigger tiles that are out here. First off, you have level 1 objects and you have level 2 objects. Level 1 objects are these smaller ones here. They all backed like this. You'll kind of shuffle them up and keep them off to the side, and then any of these major tokens are going to be refilled at the end of a round. So once all players have taken their actions, if there are empty spots for any of these objects, then they're going to get replenished. So these objects all give you some sort of different temporary bonus. When you take, so in order to get these, let's say that my priest moves from here to here, I have to decide either to take one of these objects, or, and if I do that, the priest goes back off to the board because he's done, he's taken what he wants, or he does nothing and stays on the path. And therefore, I can continue to move along the path next time, and maybe I'll decide to take another object, or maybe I'll keep going all the way to the end. That's all depending on the player's choice. But if I decide to take one of these objects, it goes in front of me, and then I can use it when I want to. Until I decide to use it, it just stays in front of me. And these give me different types of bonuses. So this one gives you +1 movement to a troop. This one gives you a divine intervention card. This one gives you +1 protection, and this one gives you the flaming sword or flaming Kopesh, gives you +1 to your damage, or combat strength. Now the level 2 objects, the bigger tiles, are also temporary, meaning once you use them they're gone, but they have much more drastically powerful effects. So this one says that for whatever the combat that you choose to use this in, nothing except for the troops involved and the battle card that you're choosing counts. No special abilities, no monster strength, no skills, no nothing. Then we go down to this one, and I'm not going to show you all these, but I'll show you the ones I have laid out here. This is sort of a push your luck one. You choose to use this object ahead of a battle, and if you win that battle as the attacker, you're going to get an additional victory point. If you lose it, you lose a victory point. You actually have these special permanent victory points here that also have a -1 side instead, so that can be kind of a dangerous thing to gamble on. I'll show you a couple more of them up here at this spot if you choose to stop here. And by the way, again, these are randomized just like the smaller ones. This one gives you 2 divine intervention cards, and this one, you actually, when you're about to do battle with someone, you can place this on one of their tiles, and it cancels out their tile temporarily. So long as you're at the end of that, until the end of that battle, their tile is like kind of flipped over, and they can't use whatever bonus it was giving them. There's more tiles than those, but that should give you a good idea of it. Then you have these dark tiles here, which are called skill tiles. Skill tiles are permanent tiles. So if I stop at one of these locations and choose to put my priest and use my priest to take one of these, that skill bonus is going to go with that priest, and the priest is going to go back to the main board into one of my troops on the board if there's room for him. And so long as that priest becomes a unit with all the different benefits of a unit of giving attack to that troop, but also he carries this skill with him, and that skill applies to whatever troop he is linked to. Furthermore, if you do this multiple times and have multiple priests go back to the main board with skills, all of your priests have learned all of the skills. So so if you use all 3 of your priests to get 3 skills, all 3 of those priests gain all 3 of those skills for each troop that they're linked to. So it can be very, very powerful. Although, if at any time you have all 3 of your priests back on the main board, you can choose to take one of them and put them back near the edge of the board to start the path to Ta-Seti again. And these skills, of course, are very powerful. This one gives you the ability that when you're in battle, every time that you spend divine intervention cards, at the end of the battle, you get back from the deck as many divine intervention cards as you used. This one says that, again, this is only for the troop that is involved in the battle. If that troop fights in the battle, that's what you get the ability for. This one says that the troop it's attached to is going to be able to gain up to 7 capacity rather than 5. You can normally only have 5 in a troop. That one lets you do 7. Over here, a couple more. This one says that if you are defending with this troop and you win the battle, you gain a victory point. And down here, this one says that this troop ignores walls. You can move into enemy districts the same way you can move into any other territory on the map. And then finally, you have Ta-Seti itself, where there is a permanent victory point. And there's multiples of these as well. These get replenished with everything else at the end of a round. So if a priest manages to get all the way to Ta-Seti, presumably he would go ahead and take that victory point and go back to the start of the path. So that's kind of why you know those other bonuses are great, but you may want to stick on the path as long as possible without taking them and removing your priest so that you can get that precious victory point at the end. All right, a few more modules here. First off, you get some extra battle cards. The extra battle cards, every set, normally you have 6 cards. Now every player is going to get an additional 2 cards, and if you choose to use this module, which you probably should, you just take those other 2 cards, put them together with the other 6, and that's it. It just means that now it's going to be a little bit longer before you replenish your hand, but the cards are pretty good. So this one gives you +1 attack, +1 damage, and +3 protection. This one is unusual because this one is going to give you +5 to your attack, but in exchange for that awesome attack strength, you are going to have to sacrifice 2 of your units when you flip that card, and hopefully not take too much more damage and lose all of your units involved in the battle. Then you have new Divine Intervention cards. This one gives you +1 to your movement capacity. This one lets you, and this one costs a prayer point. You secretly take a Divine Intervention card from the discard pile and put it into your hand. This one says that if you win the battle that you use this card in, you do not lose any troops. You do not take any damage. Although it is important to note that that card, the battle card I showed you, that has you losing 2 troops to use its attack strength, cards like this will not prevent that. This one says that if you win a battle, you're going to get 4 prayer points. This one says that if you win a battle, you get to recruit 3 units from your reserve and place them pretty much anywhere where you already have troops on the board, in one of your city districts, even if there are no troops there, or in one of your other troops somewhere out on the map. And by the way, there's 2 cards of each of these. And then finally, you have the tactical choice, which is when you play this card, and see what your opponent has revealed as well, you can choose to swap out the card that you played for the card that you put into your discard pile. And there's only other 2 modules to talk about, and they're kind of linked together, or at least the rulebook suggests that you use them together. So first off is there's a new phase of the game called the Dawn phase, and that's what these tiles are for. And this effectively replaces turn order decision making after the first round. You don't do this in the first round, but at every round afterwards, here's how this is going to work. During the main phase, the day phase, whenever you would lose a battle, you take one of these Dawn tiles. The Dawn tiles are, say, +1 at combat on them, and they have a +2 on the other side, but that's only for if you run out of these tiles, because you can have as many tiles as you want. People can just keep taking, anytime they lose a battle, they're just going to keep getting these +1 to attacks, and you hold on to all of them. Then, when it gets to the next Dawn phase, instead of determining turn order in the traditional manner, instead, everyone is going to have a combat. It's not like a normal combat, though. The way it's going to work is that everyone is going to, starting in the reverse turn order from the previous turn order, each player is going to take one of their combat cards. They're going to place a card and discard a card just as if it was a normal combat, but the only thing that matters on the card is the attack strength. And you choose to use, at that time, as many of your Dawn tokens as you want. You can use as many as you want. You can hold on to as many as you want, whatever. You choose, the person in reverse turn order from the end will do that first, then the next player, and so on. Whoever has the highest combat strength at the end of all of this, ignoring everything else in the cards, is going to be the one who decides the turn order. Or, I'm sorry, to be clearer about that, the person who has the highest gets to be the first one to choose where their turn order marker is going to go, and then in decreasing order, the rest of the players, of their total strength Dawn value, in decreasing order, those players are going to choose their space for the turn order marker. So, again, it completely changes the way the turn order works from the normal game. And what they recommend that you use together with this module is something I can't show you. It's just an alternate rule to the game. It's a new victory condition. Now, normally, in order to win the game, you need to have gained 8 victory points, and then at the end of that current day phase, be the one with the most victory points. So, for instance, if I get to 8 victory points, if I'm the only one to get to 8 victory points, or 10 victory points if you do a long game, then if I maintain that till the end of the day phase, I win the game. However, if I lose a point from there to there and no one else has gained any points, then the the game doesn't end, it goes on. Or if someone else gets to 8 points at the same time that I do, at the end of the day phase, either if someone can get up to 9 points, they'll win, or 10 points, or whatever. Or you go through tiebreakers, like who has the most battle victory points, or who came earlier in the turn order, and so on. What this new module does, the new quote-unquote, the new rule does, is that instead, when you get to 8 victory points, if it gets back around to your turn, and no one else has beat you in victory points, in other words, even if someone has tied you, as long as you were the first person to get to 8 or 10 victory points, if you're playing a long game, and it gets back to your turn, you win the game right then and there. If someone in between then has gotten more victory points than you, then the game progresses till the end, but that is going to be the last day phase. It's just a way to, I don't know, keep the last round of the game shorter, I suppose, or to give it more of a sudden death type feel, more of a race to the finish. I don't know, but they recommend that you use that together with the Dawn phase for some reason. But we'll talk about that in my final thoughts. That is the Ta-Seti expansion for Kemet. Lots of stuff here. Now, let's get to those final thoughts. Now, just to give you the sort of broad synopsis here, the TLDR version, there are parts of the Ta-Seti expansion I like more than other parts, but overall, this is an amazing expansion. And if you are a fan of Kemet, if you own the game, or if you know someone who owns a game and you leech off of them and use their copy, they need to get this, or you need to get this. It's a fantastic expansion overall because the parts that I do like are just amazing. So let's go ahead and break it down. First off, the dice. I call them dice, but the pyramids. The new black pyramids, the Ta-Seti pyramids that give you access to the black power tiles. Best thing about the expansion. And honestly, if from this point forward, they only put out expansions that added new colors of pyramids and new power tiles to the game, I'd be perfectly happy. I think that, to me, that is my favorite part of Kemet, aside from any of the territory control and the battles. Even though those are great and they're handled very well in the game, my favorite thing is getting access to the new power tiles and then using them in the game. And I love having more variety of those. And a lot of these tiles are really, really good. Even some of the level 1 tiles, just getting the mercenaries, it's like, okay, more. If you're combat oriented, you want more troops. You need more people to throw into the meat grinder, and it's cheaper to spend 1 prayer point to get a mercenary tile to get 3 automatic recruit, essentially. So I love that. I love the one that lets you recruit troops to anywhere on the board where you already have troops, not just the districts in your city. That's amazing. I love the new monsters. The Devourer. Yes, he's a level 4, which means he's kind of hard to get, but oh my gosh, he's so good. The fact that, first off, I hate being on the receiving ends of any powers that say, "Oh, we're about to fight, kill 2 of your troops." I just do it automatically. Whether it's a Divine Intervention card or whether it's another one of the power tiles that does that, I hate that. So the Devourer cancels that effect if it's being done to you. And now, if you kill 2 or more troops of your opponents in battle, you get an extra victory point. That's amazing. I love the Sphinxes, the Griffin Sphinx, the one that requires your opponents to spend 2 prayer points just to attack you, on top of whether they're teleporting to you or not. That's a serious deterrent. If you are going for the strategy like I did in one of the games that we played of camping out on one of the temples that you need to teleport to, that's fantastic because now they have to spend prayer points to teleport and prayer points to attack you because you have that creature, the Kunum Sphinx or whatever it is, with you. That's great. So there's a lot to love with all of the new black tiles. I love all the new Divine Will tiles with the golden marker. So much good stuff. I love that part of the game, and it's so easy to integrate too. It's so easy to explain. If you've got new players, just say, okay, you've got 4 different colors of pyramids. I printed out little extra cheat sheets for everyone for all the different pyramid abilities of power tiles and the Divine Intervention card. So it's just like, look over these, decide which route you want to go down, and then choose your pyramids at the start of the game accordingly. And you can choose your 3rd pyramid on the fly later on if you do the 2, 1, and 0 setup. That's great. That just means that later on you can be like, look at the layout of the board and say, okay, I'm going to level up to my red pyramid now when you have access to 4 of them. I just love that. So more variety in a game like this, always better, works very, very well. I will never not play with the black pyramids. The other part of the expansion I really enjoy, let's cover this one first. The new cards, easily integrated into the base game, whether it's the Divine Intervention cards or the battle cards. That's a no-brainer. Just do it. I'm not saying they're like phenomenally great, But because they integrate so easily, and again, because you're getting more variety of the Divine Intervention cards, some of which have really neat effects. And actually, I was shocked. I forgot that there was no movement bonus card before. So just having that is super useful. But then some of the other cards as well, the ones that let you like swap out your battle card, those are great things. On top of that, the new battle cards are not like game-breakingly, overwhelmingly good, but having more options, having more things of your panoply of stuff to use, just is good. I like having that. I like having more options, and it doesn't. I thought it'd be like, oh, well, now it's going to take longer to exhaust your hand. But the new options are perfectly valid options. Even like the one that lets you kill 2 troops to get 5 strength. Sometimes that's called for. If you can team that up with other abilities or Divine Intervention cards that give you protection so that your remaining troops aren't killed, that could be game-changing right there. So I love the new battle cards, and just, again, easy to integrate them all in. Something that I enjoy that is more difficult to integrate and that I wouldn't do in the future with new players, which unfortunately I had to do for the couple of plays that I tried out this expansion. But something I wouldn't do in the future, but I would do with experienced players because I enjoyed it, was the Ta-Seti boards, the Journey of the Priest. At first I'm like, oh man, this seems way too clunky. This is just going to drag down the game. But it's really simple. You take the move attack action, you move the priest, you decide whether you want the bonus right then and there, or you move on. And it works very, very well. Sometimes it's just like, all right, I just want to get that temporary bonus. That's all I'm interested in. I really need to win this battle. I'm just going to move there, take the temporary token, and then take one of these small objects that gives me a bonus to defense or attack or gives me a Divine Intervention card, whatever it might be. That's all I care about. Other times you're like, you know what? I'm going to take the slow and steady approach. I'm going to have my priests go all the way to the end. Get a victory point. That's great. And I think it's like, 4 or 5 moves to get to the victory point? Not a huge deal. I don't know that you could do it twice unless the game really protracted very long, but I just love the option that it is there. And the skill tiles are very cool too. The fact that you not only get the troop that you can put back into your unit, but now you have access to that permanent skill, all of which are useful. Even the least of them, like being able to have 2 extra troops or 2 extra units in your troop, is great. Being able to get Divine Intervention cards back from the deck is great. Being able to go through city walls, I mean, all of these things are amazingly powerful, and if you do it multiple times, all of your priests gain the same skills for each troop that they're in. It's a great idea, and it's very neat. Again, it's kind of clunky, and it is another whole other thing you need to explain, so I wouldn't do it your first game with new people. Or if you're watching this and haven't played Kemet at all, and you are just going to get both things, this and the expansion, the base game, don't do it your first game. Afterwards, though, definitely tried it because I liked it quite a bit. Now, there's 2 other modules I haven't talked about. One of them is a new victory condition, which is now, it's sort of a sudden death thing. As soon as someone gets to whatever point threshold you set, if they can maintain the lead until their next turn, as long as no one else beats them, even if they tie them, they win. I guess that's fine, but for me, one of the things I like about the game is the fact that when you get to one of those final rounds, it's like this, okay, I gotta figure out how I'm going to surpass you. You have until the end of that turn to plot and plan and do as much as you possibly can. I like that. I like that tension. I like having that turn to be like, and you can plan ahead and be like, okay, next turn, I need to do this, this, and this, or else I am not going to win because this person is so close to me. But when it gets to a sudden death thing, then it becomes more of a race than it was before, and I don't necessarily think that's better. So I think it's just rewarding people who get to that finish line first rather than the person who plays the game even slightly better. So maybe it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another, but I'm personally more comfortable with the old way. Now, the book recommends that you use that with the other module I haven't talked about, which is the new Dawn phase, which is having a separate battle, quote-unquote, just sort of, just to determine turn order. We tried this once. I will never use it again. Now, I don't think it's terrible, but I do think it's completely unnecessary. And I think that, especially with some of the new content that's in the expansion, there's now enough for you to worry about explaining and enough for you to worry about going on during the course of the game that you don't need to do that. I get it. I get that by having you get those Dawn tiles as compensation for losing, it can help someone who might be getting pounced on who is it balances out the game a little bit more. I'm sure if you looked at the stats, that is what that would prove. I don't care. I think that it's still too clunky and too much fiddliness to add to the game. A whole other, like, I put down a card, I use my non-tokens, then you do it, then you do it, then you do it. It just prolongs the game, and again, I just think it's unnecessary. I think that the old turn order way was fine. If someone was lagging in points, they determined the turn order completely. I liked it. It worked. So I don't really feel the need for the new thing. However, as much as I'm down on those last couple of modules, those are nowhere near the main focus of this expansion. The other parts, the pyramids, the new cards, the new Ta-Seti board, those are the focal points of the expansion, and I think those things are great, especially the pyramids and the new power tiles. So, again, I'll reiterate, if you like Kemet already, this is going to make Kemet even better. I'd make a great game even that much better. I still don't think it'll change anyone's mind about the game. There's very few expansions that will actually do that, I'll confess. And I don't think this is one of them. But again, I assume that you would already had some interest in the game. And certainly, if you already knew that you were going to like the game and were thinking of purchasing it, I would even recommend buying this at the same time and then slowly integrating some of the good elements of it. So that is the Ta-Seti expansion for Kemet. Fantastic, fantastic expansion.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.